You see, we often misunderstand emotional pain. We view it as an enemy, something to numb, avoid, escape from at all costs. But in doing so, we cut ourselves off from the very intelligence that pain is trying to awaken within us. Emotional pain is not an affliction that strikes you randomly, nor is it a cruel joke played by life. No, it is far more profound than that. It is the voice of the unconscious, rising up from the depths to call your attention to something within yourself that you have long ignored, neglected, or suppressed. Pain is never meaningless. It is never random. It is never without purpose. When you feel the ache of sorrow, the grip of anxiety, the suffocation of despair, what you are experiencing is the psyche's desperate attempt to communicate with you. It is trying to alert you to the fact that something essential within you has been forgotten, denied, or betrayed. The soul suffers when we betray ourselves, and the deeper the pain, the deeper the betrayal of our true nature. When we experience emotional pain, it often appears to be about the external world, about the people who hurt us, the losses we have endured, the failures we believe we cannot recover from. But if you have the courage to look beyond the surface, you will discover that pain is not merely about these outer events. It is about the inner structures that have become too small for the growth of your soul, the life you have constructed, the roles you have clung to, the beliefs you have inherited. They no longer fit. They suffocate the greater truth that is trying to emerge from within you. And so, pain becomes the messenger. It arrives with its raw, unbearable intensity to break through the walls you have built around your heart, your mind, and your spirit. It shows up when you can no longer afford to live in illusion. It is the great disruptor of comfort and the great awakener of consciousness. The wound in this sense is not a weakness. It is a sacred opening through which the unconscious tries to bring into awareness what has long been buried in darkness. You must understand that the unconscious does not speak in the language of logic or words. It speaks in symbols, in images, in sensations, and most powerfully, in emotions. And pain is the most urgent of these emotions because it demands that you stop, that you turn inward, that you listen. It forces you to feel what you have avoided feeling. It brings forth the hidden fears, the unresolved grief, the repressed anger, the forgotten longings, and it does so not to destroy you, but to liberate you from the prison of your own self-deception. Most people resist this process. They numb their pain with distractions, addictions, and endless external pursuits. They try to fix the outer world, believing that if they change their job, their relationship, their circumstances, the pain will disappear. But this is a dangerous illusion. For the pain is not coming from the outside, and until you turn your gaze inward and allow yourself to feel the full weight of that inner suffering, it will continue to haunt you, disguised in different forms, over and over again. When you finally surrender to this inner call, when you stop fighting the pain and instead lean into it, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to hear the message beneath the suffering. You begin to understand that the pain is guiding you toward an aspect of yourself that has been abandoned. Perhaps it is your authentic voice that was silenced long ago. Perhaps it is your creativity that was dismissed as childish. Perhaps it is your inner child, crying out for the love and acceptance you never received. Whatever it is, pain is pointing you toward it, demanding that you reclaim it, honor it, and integrate it back into your conscious life. This is why pain, when embraced consciously, becomes the beginning of awakening. It is the key that unlocks the doors to the unconscious, the catalyst that forces you to expand beyond your current identity. It is through pain that the old self cracks open, creating space for the emergence of a deeper, more authentic self. But you must be willing to listen. You must be willing to face the discomfort, to sit in the darkness, to feel what you have spent a lifetime avoiding. Only then will the pain reveal its true purpose. Not to harm you, but to heal you, to awaken you, to bring you back to yourself. And so, I say to you, when pain comes knocking, do not slam the door in its face. Open the door, Invite it in, sit with it, listen to it, and let it teach you what you have forgotten about yourself. For in that pain lies the path to your awakening. Here is key point 2, expanded into a seamless 750-word segment in the tone of Carl Jung, flowing naturally from the previous key point. When the pain has drawn you inward, when it has forced you to sit with yourself in silence, something even more unsettling begins to happen. You start to feel the fragile cracks appearing in the carefully constructed persona you have presented to the world. You see, most of us spend our lives wearing a mask, a facade crafted to fit into the expectations of society, family, and culture. This mask becomes so familiar, so rehearsed, that we forget it is not who we truly are. It is simply a defense mechanism, a shield designed to protect us from rejection, from shame, from the terror of being exposed as vulnerable, flawed, or different. And yet, this mask is not who you are. It is a role you have been playing. And emotional pain has a ruthless way of making this role unbearable to continue. The structures that once gave you a false sense of safety, the titles, the achievements, the validation from others, begin to feel empty, brittle, hollow. You find yourself disillusioned with the life you have built, no longer able to find comfort in the things that once seemed so important. The applause of others no longer fills the emptiness inside you. The approval you once chased now feels like a burden, a chain keeping you from your truth. This is the stage where many feel lost, confused, even frightened. For if you are not the person you have been pretending to be, then who are you? What remains when the persona begins to collapse? This question is not a small one. It is a question that will shake the foundations of your identity, your beliefs, your very sense of existence. But it is also the question that initiates your awakening. The crumbling of the persona is not a failure, it is an initiation. It is a sacred unraveling of the false self, making space for the authentic self to emerge. Yet this process is not gentle, it is not polite, it is raw, chaotic, and terrifying, because the ego clings desperately to its old patterns, even when those patterns cause suffering. The ego fears the unknown. It fears the death of the old identity, even though that identity is suffocating the life force within you. You may experience this as a deep existential crisis, a dark night of the soul, where nothing makes sense anymore. The things you once believed in lose their meaning. The people you surrounded yourself with may no longer understand you, or you them. You may feel alienated, isolated, as if you were standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure of who you are without the roles and masks you have worn for so long. And yet, it is precisely in this disintegration of the false self that the seeds of your true self can finally take root. It is in this fertile darkness that your soul begins to whisper its forgotten truths. You begin to remember the parts of yourself you abandoned in order to be accepted. You begin to reconnect with your forgotten passions, your suppressed desires, your neglected dreams. These are not new parts of you. They have always been there, waiting patiently beneath the mask. But they can only come forth when you have the courage to allow the old self to die. And this death is not literal, but psychological, symbolic. It is the death of the conditioned identity, the shedding of the layers you no longer need. It is the falling away of the stories you have told yourself about who you must be in order to be loved, in order to be safe. It is important to understand that this shedding is a sacred act of love toward yourself. It is not selfish, it is not rebellious, it is the necessary step toward becoming whole. For as long as you are trapped within the confines of your persona, you are living someone else's life. You are denying your own soul's voice. And when you deny that voice long enough, it screams through emotional pain, through depression, through emptiness, until you finally listen. The world will not applaud this process. It will tell you to put the mask back on, to play the role, to be who you used to be. But you must resist this temptation to betray yourself again. You must walk the lonely path of authenticity, even when it feels like you are walking alone. because it is on this path that you will find the parts of yourself that were exiled in your pursuit of approval. It is on this path that you will meet your true self, not the one crafted by others, but the one that was always there beneath the mask. And in that meeting, you will find a peace that no applause, no title, no amount of validation can ever give you. And as the persona begins to crumble under the weight of your suffering, as the roles you once played dissolve into shadows of their former selves, something unexpected begins to stir within you. It is what most people fear the most, the encounter with the shadow. This is the part of the journey that many avoid because it demands you face not only the aspects of yourself that you have denied, but also the things you despise, fear, and judge in others. The shadow is not evil. It is simply everything you have pushed into the darkness because you believed it was unacceptable, unlovable, or dangerous. It is here, in the midst of your emotional pain, that the shadow begins to surface. It emerges not as a polite guest, but as a disruptive force that confronts you with your hidden anger, your envy, your insecurities, your need for control, your suppressed desires, and the primitive fears that have long been locked away. You see, the pain forces you to meet these parts of yourself because the old strategies of avoidance no longer work. Distractions become meaningless. Numbing becomes ineffective. The more you resist, the more the shadow grows in power, leaking into your thoughts, your relationships, your dreams. And yet, this confrontation with the shadow is not a punishment. It is a sacred opportunity. It is the moment when your suffering demands that you stop running from yourself and turn toward the very parts you swore you would never face. This is the descent into your own underworld, the place where you must sit, eye to eye, with your fears, your wounds, your regrets, and your rage. It is not an easy place to go, for it is filled with everything you were conditioned to hide, to despise, to exile. But it is precisely within this hidden darkness that the keys to your freedom reside. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It contains the lost fragments of your wholeness. What you call ugly may be the very seat of your creativity. What you reject as weakness may hold the tenderness your soul has been yearning for. What you call failure may contain the humility that deepens your humanity. But you will never discover these treasures if you continue to push the shadow away, to label it as bad, to disown it and project it onto others. This is why emotional pain is such a profound catalyst for awakening. It shatters the illusion that you are only the light, only the good, only the acceptable. It brings you face to face with your own contradictions, your dualities, your human messiness. And in doing so, it offers you the chance to integrate these aspects, to bring them into the light of your consciousness, not to judge them, but to understand them, to make peace with them. When you do this, when you allow yourself to sit in the discomfort of your own shadow without flinching, without condemning, you begin to reclaim parts of your soul that have been lost in the darkness for too long. You begin to see that you are not simply the roles you play, but a vast, complex, and beautiful totality that includes both light and shadow, both strength and vulnerability, both love and fear. This integration is essential for your awakening, because as long as you deny your shadow, it will control you from behind the curtain of your unconscious mind. It will sabotage your relationships, your decisions, your sense of self, and you will find yourself trapped in endless cycles of self-sabotage, never understanding why your life feels incomplete. But when you welcome the shadow, when you make space for it within your awareness, it loses its power to control you. It becomes an ally, a guide, a source of inner strength and wisdom. This is not a one-time event. The shadow work is a lifelong process. For as long as you live, there will be parts of you that need to be seen, accepted, and integrated. But every time you take this courageous step into the depths of your being, you loosen the chains of your conditioning. You expand your consciousness. You become more whole, more grounded, more real. So, do not fear the shadow that rises within your pain. Do not turn away from it, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. For it is only by descending into this darkness that you will find the lost parts of your soul waiting patiently to be brought back into the light. As this inner confrontation deepens, as you begin to face the parts of yourself you once rejected, another natural movement occurs within the psyche. You begin to withdraw from the superficial. What once held your attention no longer satisfies. The noise of the world, the endless chatter, the shallow conversations, the rituals of small talk, the frantic pace of modern life, they all begin to feel like empty echoes in a hollow chamber. The more you become attuned to the depths within you, the more intolerable the surface becomes. This is not isolation in the pathological sense. It is not loneliness, nor is it a retreat out of bitterness or despair. It is an essential withdrawal, an inner calling to step away from the distractions that once numbed your pain and masked your truth. You find yourself craving silence, craving space, craving moments where you can simply be with yourself without the demands of performance or pretense. You may feel a pull toward nature, toward solitude, toward practices that nourish your inner world rather than feed the ego's appetite for stimulation. This stage can be misunderstood by those around you. Friends may accuse you of withdrawing, of being distant, of no longer participating in the games of the outer world. They may not understand why you no longer desire the same conversations, the same gatherings, the same rituals of distraction. But this is the soul's necessary retreat, a sacred step in the alchemy of awakening. For the psyche knows that healing and transformation require a certain stillness, a sacred space where the noise of the world can no longer drown out the subtle whispers of the inner voice. You may feel guilty for withdrawing. You may feel the pull of old obligations, the pressure to explain yourself, to justify your need for space. But I tell you, there is nothing to justify. The soul does not require permission to return to itself. It does not need to apologize for choosing depth over surface, meaning over entertainment, truth over pretense. In fact, it is only when you allow yourself this withdrawal that the deeper layers of your being can finally speak to you. In the silence, the illusions you clung to begin to dissolve. You start to see through the games you once played, the roles you once accepted as necessary. You realize how much of your life was built on fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being judged, fear of being insignificant. And in the stillness, you begin to understand that true connection, true belonging, true significance come not from the validation of the crowd, but from the quiet alignment with your own soul. This is why the retreat into your inner world is not an escape, but a return. It is a return to your own inner temple, a place you abandoned long ago in your desperate search for love and approval outside yourself. And in this temple, you begin to remember who you truly are, beneath the layers of conditioning, beneath the performances, beneath the masks. You begin to rediscover the essence of your being, the part of you that does not need to prove anything to anyone, the part of you that simply is. This withdrawal is not forever. It is a sacred pause, a necessary gestation period where your soul gathers its strength, its clarity, its vision. And when the time is right, you will emerge again, but not as the person you once were. You will return to the world carrying a deeper truth, a more authentic presence. You will no longer need to participate in the games of validation, for you will know that your worth comes not from the outside, but from the depths of your own being. But until that time comes, honor the call to withdraw. Let yourself be still. Let yourself feel the discomfort of the silence. Let the emptiness cleanse you of the need to fill it with meaningless distractions. For it is in this emptiness that the fullness of your true self will finally be heard. It is here, in the quiet spaces between the noise, that the seeds of your awakening will take root and begin to grow. As the withdrawal deepens and the layers of illusion continue to peel away, you begin to experience an unfamiliar and often unsettling state of inner emptiness. It is not the hollow emptiness that comes from distraction or disconnection. No, this is a sacred emptiness. It is the void that remains after the old structures have collapsed, after the familiar identities have fallen away, after the masks have been discarded and the shadows have been faced. It is the space between what you once were and what you have not yet become. And though it may feel disorienting, frightening even, it is in truth the most fertile ground for inner transformation. In this void, you will notice how deeply uncomfortable the mind becomes. It longs to fill the emptiness with new identities, new labels, new distractions. The mind fears the unknown, fears the silence, fears the stillness, for it has been conditioned to believe that if it is not doing, not achieving, not seeking, then it is failing. But this is not failure. This is the sacred pause where the soul prepares itself for a new way of being that the mind cannot yet comprehend. You must resist the temptation to rush through this stage. You must resist the urge to grasp at the next thing that promises certainty, safety, or purpose. For if you do, you will only rebuild the same fragile structures that have already proven themselves incapable of holding the vastness of your soul. This emptiness must be honored. It must be felt fully, without distraction, without judgment, for it is in this space that the old attachments lose their grip on you, that the old wounds loosen their hold, that the old patterns dissolve in the fires of awareness. In the emptiness, the heart becomes quiet enough to feel the faint stirrings of something new. At first it is subtle, almost imperceptible, a gentle whisper rather than a roar. It does not demand your attention like the ego once did. It does not scream for recognition like the wounded child. It is the quiet voice of your deeper self, your authentic essence, beginning to rise from the ashes of your former life. It speaks not in grand visions or elaborate plans, but in a simple, grounded knowing. You may find yourself drawn to things that once seemed insignificant. A walk in the woods, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the stillness of early morning. You may feel a longing to reconnect with your body, your breath, your senses. These are not distractions. They are the subtle signs that you are being invited into a more authentic relationship with life itself. This stage of embracing emptiness is essential, for it teaches you that you do not need to be anyone or do anything to be worthy of your own love and attention. It reveals to you the radical truth that your value is not determined by your achievements, your roles, or the approval of others. In the emptiness, you learn to rest in your own beingness, to trust that life itself is enough, that you are. And from this place of inner surrender, a new foundation begins to emerge, not one built on fear or ambition, but on authenticity, simplicity, and inner alignment. You no longer feel the desperate need to control everything, to force life to fit your expectations. Instead, you begin to open to the mystery of what wants to emerge through you. Allowing life to unfold in its own sacred timing. You learn to listen deeply, to trust your intuition, to follow the quiet impulses of the soul rather than the loud demands of the ego. This is the birth of a new relationship with life, one that is rooted not in striving, but in presence, not in fear, but in trust, not in grasping, but in allowing. And it is only by allowing yourself to fully enter and embrace the emptiness that this new relationship can take root and flourish. You cannot bypass this stage. You cannot force the new self to appear before it is ready. The soul works in rhythms and cycles that the mind cannot dictate or control. So when the emptiness comes, welcome it as a sacred space. Sit in it. Breathe in it. Trust that within its apparent void lies the quiet, unstoppable emergence of your truest self. For only those who dare to sit fully in the emptiness will one day discover that what they thought was nothing was in fact the birthplace of everything. As the emptiness settles within you like a vast and silent sea, something extraordinary begins to take shape beneath the surface. Slowly, quietly, without fanfare or applause, you begin to feel a subtle inner shift, an awakening of something that cannot be touched by words or captured by the intellect. It is as if, after a long and painful winter, the first green shoots of spring push their way through the frozen ground. You begin to experience moments of clarity, not born from logic or effort, but arising naturally from within. Insights, intuitions, small flashes of understanding that feel as though they come from a place deeper than your personal mind. They arrive not as thoughts, but as direct knowing, as if your soul itself is whispering truths it has carried all along. This is the moment where the suffering you have endured reveals its hidden purpose. The pain, the disillusionment, the shadow work, the retreat into emptiness, all of it has been preparing the soil of your being for these first tender sprouts of wisdom to emerge. For wisdom is not something you acquire from books or from the teachings of others alone. True wisdom is born in the crucible of your own direct experience. It is forged in the fires of your pain, in the stillness of your surrender, in the courage to face all that you once feared within yourself. And what you begin to see is that this wisdom was never outside of you. It was never waiting to be given to you by another. It was always within, obscured by the noise, the masks, the illusions. It is the wisdom of your own soul, your own inner guide, your own sacred knowing. And as it begins to rise, you feel a new kind of certainty, not the brittle certainty of the ego that demands answers and guarantees, but a quiet, grounded certainty that lives in your bones, in your breath, in the way your heart moves toward what is true. This new relationship with yourself brings with it a profound shift in how you meet life. You no longer chase after purpose as if it is something distant to be achieved. You realize that your very existence is already purposeful, that your being, your presence, your truth are enough. And from this space, you begin to live in alignment with your authentic self, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of devotion. You stop betraying yourself in order to belong to places, people, and systems that cannot honor your truth. You stop seeking love in places that require you to abandon your soul. You begin to choose yourself, not from ego or pride, but from the deep reverence for the life that moves uniquely through you. This alignment with your authentic self does not mean that life becomes free of challenge or pain. It means that you meet those challenges from a place of wholeness, from a place of inner integrity. You no longer fear the pain as something to avoid, but see it as a sacred messenger, a teacher that guides you deeper into your own becoming. You no longer resist the unknown, but open to its mystery, trusting that whatever arises is part of your unfolding path. And in this space of alignment, something even more beautiful happens. You begin to feel your connection to all of life in a way that is no longer conceptual, but deeply embodied. You see yourself in the faces of others, even those who are still lost in their pain, still trapped in their masks. You feel compassion not from superiority, but from the humble knowing that you, too, have walked through the same darkness. You feel no need to fix others, no need to impose your truth upon them, but you become a quiet presence, a living example of what it means to walk the path of inner truth. This is the silent gift of emotional pain. It strips you of what is false, so that you may finally stand in the nakedness of your truth. It is not a curse, but an invitation, an initiation into the depths of your own soul, where you discover that everything you were seeking outside of yourself has been waiting patiently within you all along. And when you arrive at this place, when you taste this inner freedom, you will see that the journey was never about escaping the pain, but about allowing it to open the hidden doors within you that lead to the fullness of life itself. If this message has stirred something within you, do not let it fade into the background noise of everyday life. Take the first courageous step inward. Begin to listen to your pain, not as an enemy, but as a guide. Sit with your discomfort, honor your shadows, and create the sacred space for your authentic self to emerge. You don't need to have all the answers. You only need the willingness to meet yourself where you are, in truth, in vulnerability, in honesty. Let this be the moment you stop running from yourself and start walking toward your own inner awakening. The path is waiting, and it begins with you. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more videos just like this. Thank you.